Good morning, everybody. My name is Marina Parkin. I'm a partner in Koontz and Parkin, and Joanne Koontz may be joining us later today. But most importantly, this morning, which is morning of Tuesday, October 20th, I'm joined by my wonderful business coach, John Seiffer, who has been instrumental in putting us on the right track and keeping us there and making sure that we grow and are happy and our business is doing really well. So we want to be bringing you more of John's wonderful thoughts on various subjects. And without further thoughts, here is John to tell you some amazing things about why do customers pay you.
All right, thank you. So today we're talking about developing a sales process because it's not just about making a sale. You can't survive in your company with making a sale here and a sale there. You have to have a process, and you have to have a process that's under your control. So this is something that you can work on in your CEO time. Your CEO time should be about 2 hours a week that you block off to do the work on your business. The rest of the time you can work in your business if you need to, but you should have dedicated time to working on your business, and I'll get into how you use that for this. So I'd like to start off by saying thanks to Joanne and Marina for having me on here. And I feel like I should start this with a 12-step program because my name's John Seiffer. I'm a businessman and I hate to sell. And I've always hated to sell. I love making sales. So despite hating to sell, I have made many sales in my lifetime, in my career. I have built many profitable companies. I've literally never had a job, so I've always had a business and I've always had sales that I've had to do. And now I consult with owners of growing companies so that they can learn faster and easier than I did, hopefully from some of my mistakes. But I can tell you that you can build a profitable company even if you hate to sell. Where most people get stumbled is they are hoping they're going to love it. And most people don't love it. It's just something that you have to be willing to do something you hate to get something you love. You know that feeling if you've ever changed a diaper, and I've changed a few in my life too as well. So I can't promise you'll love selling, but I can show you how to build a repeatable, scalable sales process. And what actually happens is people feel that they hate it less when it's a process that they know they can control. So of course, eventually you'll want to hire people that love to sell as your company gets big enough, and I can help with that too. But that part goes much easier if you've already got a process that you have done and that's repeatable and, like I said, scalable. So let's get started. If you've listened to any of my other videos, most of them have this quote on here from Peter Drucker. There's only one valid definition of a business purpose. Most people say, well, to create wealth or to create innovation or to create some new topic, new product, make good in the world. Those are all wonderful ideas, but if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business, and you can't do any of that other stuff. So if we want to create a customer, we have to look at this process from the customer's point of view. And that means we have to talk about buying, not selling. So we have to understand the buyer's journey. And there are 4 stages that every buyer goes through. And I want to think about the last time you bought something big that you don't think about a lot, like something like a car. And before you even started thinking about buying a car, you were in the first stage, which is what I call clueless. Now, it doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means it's not on your radar. And you have prospects out there that are clueless about you. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means you're not on their radar. And then something happens. Maybe you get another kid and it's time for the minivan, or maybe the kid goes to college and it's time to get away and give up the minivan. Maybe that noise under the hood is getting weirder and louder and whatever. And then you move into the next stage of curious. You're not ready to buy a car, but you know it's on the horizon. You're starting to think about it. Now you're starting to pay attention to car ads or who's driving what comes up on the street, etc. Like I said, you're paying attention, but you're not really serious. Then something else happens. Maybe that noise gets a little louder, or maybe it's just some deal comes out on the internet or whatever, and now you're serious. You're starting to have a budget, you're looking for deals, you're looking for actually what you want and who you're going to buy it from, etc. And then finally you pull the trigger and you're sold. So that's the buyer's journey. Well, what do we do as sellers? As sellers, we have to dance with the buyers. It's not a process that's totally under our control. That means there are two parts to developing the sales process. One is to understand what stage the buyer's at, and the second is to understand what you do differently at each stage. Because if you do the right thing at the wrong stage, you can blow the deal. Likewise, if you don't do the right thing at the right stage, you can blow the deal. And what generally this means is that the things that we do as sellers at the front end of this process fall under the category of marketing. We're reaching out to the clueless and the curious, and the things that we do at the other end tend to be sales. And so in this session, we're going to look at the front end of this process. We'll get into the back end in some of the other sessions, but this is why this is part one. So before we go any further, I want to mention what to take notes on. You don't have to write down what you see and hear. This will be recorded, and if you'd like a copy of this slide deck, you can email me. My email will be at the end. What I want you to write down is what you'll do based on this, how this will affect your sales process, what you learn about your specific situation, and keep those notes either in a CEO notebook or either a paper one or electronic one. I like to use OneNote. You can use whatever works for you. But that's the kind of thing that I'd like you to write down. And I'm going to start by telling you about two purchases that I made recently from the buyer's perspective. And I want you to think about them in terms of what did the seller do and what did the buyer do? And then we can apply that to your specific situation. So I was plunking around on the internet one day. I don't really remember what I was doing, but I'm sure it was something very important and very impactful. And an ad came up for slippers. Now, I wasn't looking for slippers. I wasn't thinking about slippers. I had noticed recently that my slippers were getting ratty, but not so ratty that my wife would even say anything about them, but they were getting there. Actually, that's kind of not true. My wife is wonderful and would never say that anything about it till it got really, really bad. She's just that kind of wonderful person. But so this ad came up, and I thought, okay, I probably should look at slippers. And so I checked them out. The price was right. They're actually comfy, some kind of foam, memory foam in the bottom and whatever. And, you know, this is great because it's the pandemic. I barely wear pants these days, never mind shoes. So I'm in my slippers all the time. And so I put my credit card in, I bought them, and a few days later they showed up at my house. So that's my slippers. The next thing I've bought recently is a mortgage. I have refinanced my house, and unfortunately we don't live in a place where Joanne can do the closing for us. But I had noticed that this is how this process went. I had noticed that interest rates were coming down, and actually two of my kids who own houses are refinancing their mortgages, and they're getting really good deals. And I did the numbers. I thought, yeah, if I could get a deal like that, it would save some money. My wife and I talked about it. She did some research, found a couple of places online. The one that had the lowest interest rate actually got pretty lousy reviews from customer service and all that. So we went with the second lowest, which turned out to be one of the guys who did one of our kids' refinance. So she reached out to him. He sent us some paperwork to fill out online, which we did. He said, this looks great. He handed it off to one of his colleagues. She reached out to us with some more paperwork. We did that all online. She said, this is great. It's in the pipeline. A few days later, a third person reached out to us with some more stuff. We sent that in, and we're in the pipeline. We'll close in a week or two, maybe a couple weeks. and they're actually going to send somebody to our house to do the closing. They're going to send a notary because it's the pandemic. Again, I'm not even wearing pants. So we're not going to go anywhere. They're going to come to our house and do all this stuff.
You should have pants on when the mobile notary comes, though.
Yeah, our house, I'll put
just
them on,
for clarification. I feel like as your lawyer, I should say something.
Right. And I'm joking, I really am wearing pants. So this process was a lot different than buying the slippers. So think of those two processes in terms of what they did at the different stages. And specifically, I want you to think about and ask these questions about your sales process. Who starts it? Who finishes it? Which parts need personal interaction and which parts don't? Which parts can be automated and which parts can't? So if you think about the slippers, the slipper company started that process. I wasn't even looking. They started it by putting ads out, by whatever else they did to put that thing on my screen. With the mortgage, I started it. I reached out. But with the slippers, they didn't do anything else. It was totally automated after that. I had to do all the work to finish it. With the mortgage, there's at least 3 people been involved so far, and probably going to be a 4th who have to be involved from the seller's end. So that's how those things can change. And it depends on the process that is unique to your business, or not necessarily unique, but specific to your business and your buyers and your market, how people want to buy, how you need to sell. So we're going to start with, like I said, the beginning of the sales process today. And that's the marketing. How do you reach out to these people who are clueless, who you are not on their radar? And specifically, we want to talk about who are these people? What would they pay for? And where can you reach them? So in the next few minutes, we're going to go into this, and I guarantee this will overwhelm you. This will look daunting. This will look, oh my God, there's so much of this to do. Well, hang in there, because we'll come up with a solution at the end. So who are these people? And the truth is, you can't sell to everybody. A lot of people think, I have this wonderful product. Everybody could use this product. That may be true, but you can't sell to everybody. It's just too big of an elephant to eat all at once. I'll give you an example. I once did a talk at the WEVA convention. WEVA stands for the Wedding and Events Videographers Association. This was a conference they have every year in Las Vegas. And so I did a talk about business development. And what I learned, I didn't know much about wedding videographers, but there were people there who did very, very high-end wedding videography. These cost like $10,000 or $20,000 a pop. These were very individualized. They would go to your house, go to the groom's house, the bride's house, they, beforehand, during, after. They did all this custom editing, special music, etc. And you got a very bespoke product. There were also people there that did a very cheap wedding for a couple $100. They would send somebody out, stick a camera in the same place in every ceremony, record things, pop them back in, do a very quick editing job, probably put the same music behind everybody's wedding thing, send you, this was back then when they would send it to you on a DVD, you were done. Neither of those companies did the other kind of work. You can't sell to everybody. Neither of them sold to everybody who wanted their wedding done. They had chopped up that market and found the ones that were specifically interested in what they did and what they did well. And both of these companies made money. So that's my point. You can't sell to everybody. So the first step is figuring out who are these people that you can sell to. Not everybody should start down your pipeline. And the way this is done in marketing speak is called a persona. A persona is a fictitious description of a particular person who you think you're going to market to, who you think is going to be interested in what you sell. And these pictures here are from HubSpot. HubSpot is a company that does outreach marketing, content marketing, and they have a program for this, and they'd be happy to sign you up and have you pay for it. And initially, they thought that their market was this guy, Owner Ollie, they called it. And this is what you do when you make a persona. It's really useful to put a name to this person and a picture if you can. I think you even have to have alliteration. That seems to be what everybody does. So this is Owner Ollie, and they thought this was the owner of a small company of 1 to 100 employees. They started the business with their own capital. They do it all themselves. And what HubSpot found out was Owner Ollie was a really hard sell. It wasn't a big, even though they could help Owner Ollie wasn't necessarily interested in paying for it and doing the work. They got a few accounts. Then they said, well, let's go after Marketing Mary. Marketing Mary is somebody that's a director or a VP of marketing in a larger company with 100 to 2,000 employees. They got a lot more traction with Marketing Mary. And eventually now they also sell to Enterprise Aaron. Enterprise Aaron works for a company with over 2,000 employees, and she's the CMO or the VP of global marketing. And they sell differently. They still sell to Owner Ollie. They still sell to small companies, but they sell a different package, and they sell it in a different way, and they sell it at different pricing. And they have done research on these people to figure out what they need, what they want. And the research they've done is what Seth Godin calls psychographics, not demographics. Demographic research is all about how old this person is, what their gender is, what their zip code is, what their income is, et cetera. Have they been to college? The psychographics are, what does that person believe? What are their dreams? What are they hoping to accomplish? And Seth Godin made an interesting point. You can get a lot of demographic breakdowns. You can buy these things by zip code. And he says, for every psychographic breakdown, there's people in any zip code that have a certain kind of belief, that have a certain kind of dream, that have a certain kind of thing that they're looking for. And that's what you're trying to get at, is what resonates with these people, so that you can market to the people that will resonate with you and with your product. So that's the first question, is who are these people? And you start with your idea, your hypothesis, and then you test that. And you say, do these people really exist? And can I find them? And what do they look like? And you can develop this, this demographic, this persona for them. And then you think, well, what would they pay for? Why do they value what you have? And if you think about when you spend money, you want that thing more than you want that money. You give money to somebody so that they give you something you value, and you want that thing more than the money, at least at that moment. Maybe the next day you go, why did I do that? But at least at that moment, you want that thing. I actually still like my slippers, so we're good there. But I was teaching this topic, this concept, to a group at the Central Connecticut State University one day. And earlier that day, I had to have my water heater replaced. And for some reason, it's a power vented something or other, which just translates into more dollars. So I knew that I wanted hot water more than I wanted $1,100. And the reason I knew that is because I had just spent $1,100 to get hot water. And every exchange is like that, whether it's a cup of coffee, whether it's your Netflix subscription, the car we were talking about. When people buy something, they want that value. So you want to know not only what they value, but all the things that go around that value. Let me give you an example. If you hire somebody to come do some work at your house, remodeling something or a plumber or whatever, obviously they have to do good work. But to get a really good rating, to get really good referrals, they have to do more than that. They have to show up. They have to show up when they say they're going to show up. They have to communicate about when they're going to show up and when they're not. I literally had a guy, and I gave him a great review. He was doing some work on my foundation, some pointing and stuff. And he called me and said, I'm going to be 10 minutes late this morning because I'm stuck in traffic. And I'm like, yes, you know, I didn't expect that kind of communication, but it was amazing. So, and for example, do they clean up every day after they're done? So those are things that people value that are not necessarily related to the product, but can make a big difference in what you sell. I have another client that they do advanced manufacturing work. They have a part on the Mars rover. They're going to have a part on the next one. They have parts in submarines and stuff like this. And until they started looking into it like this, they didn't realize that one of their best customers loved their quality. They knew that, was okay with the prices. They got some contracts. They lost some contracts based on the price. They knew that, and they were okay with that. What they didn't realize was they were lousy at hitting their deadlines and their delivery times, and that was really important to this customer. And so once they realized that, now they could change that, and they could get a lot more business from that customer. And that company ended up doubling their sales, not just from that customer, from others as well. So this is what you want to find out, what people value. And you can think about what they value, but you will probably be wrong, or at least you won't be exactly right on target. And so don't assume you know what they value. The solution is ask them, talk to them. And another way to think about value is, how does it change their life? What is different about their life because you interacted with them, because you sold them your product, your service, or whatever? It can be a huge thing. It can be a small thing. You know, I bought a pack of gum recently because it changed. I wouldn't say it changed my life, but it makes me taste better. Makes my breath smell better. It's, you know, it gives me something to do when I'm driving in the car, which keeps my jaw occupied, whatever. That's the value that you want to think about. How does it affect people's lives? And in fact, when I talk to people about their quote elevator pitch, the simplest elevator pitch is, I sell X, my product, my service, to Y, my customers, so that, and then you'd say, here's what's different about their life because they bought from you. So think about value in that way and ask them what's different about their life, what's valuable about them. We'll get into specifics about how to do this. And so how do you reach out to these clueless people? So the question was, who are they, what do they pay for, and how do you find them? And when you think about that, there's a million ways you can reach people. This is just a sample here of ways that you can reach out to people that have not heard of you, that you are not on their radar. There's in-person networking, there's phone calling, there's cold calling, there's blogs, there's websites, consultations, workshops, trade shows, pay-per-click, SEO, all this kind of stuff. You can literally go nuts. The idea is that you will do some of this for them, and then they will become curious, or at least some of them will move down that pipeline from clueless to curious. So now that you have put you're now on their radar, they will start acting like, hey, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more. But how do you pick? There's so many options here. It can drive you nuts. So there's two ways to do this. Basically, the first way is to experiment. That's what the laboratory thing is all about, to try different things and see what works. And when you do that, don't try to see what works partially, but what works to actually get you a customer. Here's what I mean by that. Say you want to try social media. And so you say, well, we're going to do some Instagram stuff. And, oh, look, we got followers. Oh, good, look, we got likes. Oh, look, people are sending our stuff around. Well, that's wonderful, but that's not the entire sales process. That hasn't moved people all the way through to serious and sold. I would rather have, and this is exaggeration, I would rather have 10 Instagram followers who buy from me than a million Instagram followers and only one of them buys from me. So when you do these experiments, measure how many people follow through all the way and become customers. That's your experiments. The other thing is to talk to people. Talk to your customers. Talk to prospects who you think should be your customers. And when you do this, don't do it by email. Don't do it by surveys. That's the cheating way to do it. And it's not effective. And here's why. Suppose you say to somebody, you send them an email, you say, just like to know what social media you use. Well, first of all, most of them are going to ignore you. But the ones that respond, let's say they tick off Facebook and Instagram. And you go, great, those are my two social media ways I'm going to do it. That's my people. They are on Facebook and Instagram. But let's say you talk to them and you say to somebody, first of all, if they're in a conversation with you, they haven't ignored you, but you're talking to them and you say, just like to know what social media you use. And one of them says, oh, Instagram, I'm on there 3 or 4 times a week. I've got a gazillion followers, and I guess I'm on Facebook too. Well, you got the same answer. You got Facebook and Instagram, but you got a very different reading because you were in a conversation. And you might even get a response that says, yeah, social media, not so much, but here's what I do. And then you can take your conversation down that rabbit hole and find out about that. And maybe something you've never heard of. And you go, oh, how does that work? And so those are the things that you want to know, and you can't learn that without a conversation. So all these ways to find out who these people are, all these ways to find out what they value, all these ways to reach out to them. Are you overwhelmed yet? You probably are. So take a minute, calm down, breathe. Let's bring this down to earth. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to make some of these plans during your CEO time, and then you'll execute these plans during your selling time, which means you have to have time in your calendar to do both. Many times our selling time is just reactive. We wait till somebody calls up, somebody clicks, somebody sends an email, somebody reaches out to us, and then we get into selling mode. You want to put some sales time into your day or your week all the time. And the reason that that's important is this happens a lot with service companies. You get so busy serving customers at your busy times, and you forget to keep the marketing pipeline going. You forget to keep the sales pipeline full. And then when you finally take a breath, you go, oh, where are my customers? Oh, now I have to reach out. But it's going to take days, weeks, maybe months to reach out and to have those new people now become actual customers. You have to keep a little bit of it going. And here's what I recommend. These are the action items I'd like you to take away from today. Start by finding out who these people are. You make a list of 10 of customers that you want more of, and 10 customers that you don't want any more of. And start to figure out what's the difference. What are these 10 that you like? What's different about them? And what are these 10 that you don't like? And some of the differences will be about the kind of work that they hire you for. Some of it will be about the size of the deals. Some of it will be non-quantifiable, qualitative things. What are they like? How much fun are they to work with? How easy are they? And those are legitimate things as well. And then you'll start to develop the personas of the kinds of people that you want more of and the kinds of people that you don't want more of. And if there's people that you don't want more of, you want to eliminate them as early as possible in your sales process. There's a discussion periodically that shows up. Should I put my prices on my website? Well, there's no easy answer. that's one size fits all, but I can tell you that that's one way of eliminating the tire kickers. If it works for you, you start to mention what your prices are and people go, oh, that's not for me. And great, you don't want those people. You have to be able to eliminate them as early as possible. If that's not the right way to do it for you, another way to do it is just in the questions that you ask when you start to engage with them. And you start to say, well, do you have a budget for this kind of thing? What are you thinking of spending? What are your time frames of this and that and the other? So you want to look at what's good about the customers you want more of. That's this, what's similar about the ones you don't want more of. And then talk to them. So call up those 10 customers, learn how they buy, where they get their information, what they respond to, what they value. Look for those psychographic things about them, not just the demographics. But if there are your customers already, you can say, why did you pick us? What did you like about us? How did you find out about us? How did you first hear about us? Now, when you ask that question, they're not going to know the answer. They're going to give you an answer, but it won't always be true, or it won't always be as accurate as you'd like. And that's just human nature. It may be that the 6 or 8 things that you did, they'll remember the last one. But you'll find out where they get their information, where they hang out, what social media do they follow, who are the people that are influencers to them. I have a client who has a chain of lingerie stores. They work with big busted women. Their tagline is the alphabet starts with D, and they have very cool stores. It's a very caring and tender way that they fit. And since the pandemic, they have actually learned how to do remote bra fittings. I don't know anything about that, but except that they do it. We were talking about how they get a lot of their business. And surprisingly, what they found that works, they do a lot of Instagram stuff. It's called Jeanette Bras, if you want to check them out, by the way. They do a lot of Instagram stuff, and they also do advertising on NPR. And specifically, Marketplace Business Report show. They get a lot of business when they advertise on Marketplace. Now, I don't know what's behind that. I don't know if these are business women who are listening to Marketplace, or if it's businessmen who have relationships with women, but somehow they found out that is what works for them. That's where their people, it's one of the places that their people tend to hang out. So you have to do these experiments and you have to learn. And then those are the 2 things that you'll do mostly in your CEO time. You'll make these lists, you'll talk to your customers, you'll talk to your prospects, you'll do these kinds of learning. And then the third piece is make a list of just 3, maybe even less, but no more than 3 of those marketing activities, and spend an hour a week doing them. If you have more time because you need more customers, then you can do more than an hour. But do at least an hour, regardless of how busy you are with your customer base. And take that huge list that I gave you and knock it down to 3, so it's not overwhelming to you, so that you have a structure, so that you know what to do when you're in marketing or sales mode. So that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank Joanne and Marina again for the opportunity. This is my email, john@ceobootcamp.com. Email me if I can help you apply any of these ideas, or if you'd like a copy of this deck. And I'll turn it back to you ladies for any questions, comments, thoughts, tomatoes, whatever.
Lots of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts.
First of all, when you said big busted women, I thought you meant busted, like not in a good way.
Well, you're a lawyer. That's why you think that way.
So that was funny. Number 2, that making the list of the avatar of the person is harder than you think.
Yes.
When we first started down this path, we had 12 people, and John was like drinking in the middle of the day. Like, you can't have 12. That's a lot. And so after we started to examine and pull it through, we were like, yeah, it's really 6, and it's really 6 because there's a law firm and a CPA firm. So we he really wanted us to have 3.
Mhm.
And of course we negotiated for more, but it really, you think there's a lot of difference at first, and it's kind of like house. If you're building a house, the designers and the contractors are like, you're going to put 100 pictures in and there's 3 common themes. It's the same thing with the customers. You have a tendency to identify on a more granular level than really is how you would market. So don't be overwhelmed if that happens to you, because it happened to us. There have been several times where we've been working on something and John's like, just stop. Just don't do any more with that.
Let me put a little context to that. As we get further into the selling and buying process, there are things that you do differently for different types of customers and different pipelines. And that's when it makes sense to make a different persona. If you're going to say things differently, if you're going to reach out in a different way, if that process, that buying process is different, then it makes sense to have a different pipeline. But if it's not really that different, then it doesn't.
But if you're new at this, it's harder to see if it's really different. So it's been helpful to have John to, to bounce those things off of. And, it's been nice to have that feedback and that help to say, no, that's really the same. You're really not going to be different. And because it all feels overwhelming and different in the very beginning. And it quickly starts to take shape when you spend some time in that space.
I think that it became a little bit circular for us because on one hand, we went in with the idea of who it is that would be a perfect customer, even if it was 12 different types. But we already had a really nice big client base when we went into this exercise. And we liked some of them, we didn't like others, and some of them worked for us and some of them didn't work for us. So it was like, okay, why is it that we like these clients? So it became circular in a way that we almost first had to figure out why we like them to then develop the criteria to kind of judge everybody else against that criteria to say, well, what is this perfect avatar? Well, they have this and this and this, but they're also nice, for example, and they also pay on time. That's the kind of stuff that is, also makes it a great client. It's a little bit psychographic, John, because if it's a nice person that's got a nice it's got a great personality, easy to work with, they get you, you get them. That's a huge deal as well, as opposed to you always trying to fight against the advice that you're giving them. And it's so we kind of had the criteria, then we had the client list, then we went from that to client list. So I really think that what really solidified it for us at the end is when we kind of had this sort of a criteria that we put these clients against, we tested that criteria against the clients that we had decided would be our avatar. So to say, okay, who is this client? Who's this perfect client? Okay, let's take that a particular type. Do they fit these 4 or 5 criteria that we said? Yes, they do. So when it kind of worked, that's when it sort of became, okay, now we know who we're going after. Now it's a better, clearer picture. They are not going to fit perfectly in that box, but we have a really, really clear idea of who it is that we want to see more of and which of our existing clients fit that, and it works. So that definitely took some time and some gyrations. And I'm sure we overthink everything we do because that's just the way we are. And so it did take
perpetual student
back. But ultimately, I think that we really haven't strayed away from it much, because I think we did a really nice job. And at the end of the day, when the new client that we get that kind of fits into that shape and meets those criteria, we're like, yes, this is it. This is why they're a perfect client.
And you guys had a reasonably mature business when we started working together. Some of those criteria change over time. When you have a small business or you don't have enough clients, one of the key criteria is somebody that's going to buy and pay quickly. And that can trump everything else. You'll put up with a jerk if they buy and pay quickly. But that changes over time. After you get enough of those people, you go, maybe I don't want people like that. I can afford to move upstream. I did this exercise with the client that I mentioned that has parts in submarines and on Mars and stuff. And this is a 50-year-old, it's older now, 50-year-old, started as a machine shop. This guy took it over from his dad. Now they're advanced manufacturing. They were literally, somebody would walk in from the neighborhood with a piece of their lawnmower that was broken and say, can you make one of these, or can you fix this? You know, and it was a $50 job. And they go, oh yeah, we can do that. You know, and that was not their client base it was back in the day, but it's not anymore. So these things change and they upgrade. Yeah.
The other comment that I have is, you know, when we talked about having a conversation with these clients and, you know, why did they pick you? And a lot of times it is definitely helpful, but we also found that it is helpful, in addition to that, to have an outside party talk to them. And it's not, you're not really doing this, you know, nameless survey that you just send out and say, okay, tick this box and make a comment. But it could even be like a staff member, or it could be, you know, maybe an outside contractor that you hire to do some development or marketing for you. Because I find that sometimes they can open up to a third party a little bit more if they do have some more critical types of comments that they may not say, you know, feel comfortable saying that to your face. You know, I do have to say, when we did have one of our contractors who was helping us with some marketing stuff, she made calls to some of the clients, and the feedback that we got, it's kind of like what you expect a little bit, but there's a lot of things there that we didn't really expect, and I feel like they may not have said that to our face, good and bad. You know, sometimes they don't want to tell you how great you are because they don't want you to have that big ego.
Or raise the bill.
Yes, or raise the bill. She's worth so much more. Okay, your bill just went up. But I think it's definitely helpful to have that one-on-one conversation, and then also maybe have a third party have a little bit of the follow-up too. We found that to be helpful.
Good point. Good.
Well, thank you so much. It's always great to have you on. And I will say, John, I had several people reach out, and when they saw it was going to be you on, they were like, I love that guy.
Well, that's nice to hear.
I'm glad I'm not the only like sarcastic one now, so I have some companionship. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. And Lori Cashy's like, tell Marina I think she's amazing, because she is. So, and you know what? When you ask, you hear some really nice things, and it is a little bit of a boost for the ego. So ask when you're having a tough week, because
yes. Most definitely.
We felt really, really loved when that exercise was complete. So, you know, it's always nice to see. So anyway, we thank you. We love having you. John will be back next month with part 2, I presume.
Yes.
And we'll be on next week. Don't miss. Now, this is riveting, the edge of your seat. We're going to be talking about considerations for documentary stamp tax. So I can see how, you know, the Zoom room will probably be full, because everybody, is just clamoring to get to doc stamps, but they happen and they cause problems when people don't expect. So because of the volume of questions we're getting, we know that it's not clear. Sometimes it's kind of like, if you're having the dress code conversation to the whole group, the person who is the biggest offender probably isn't there. But we're going to bring that to you next week. So if you know someone who says things that are not accurate about doc stamps, maybe forward them the recording.
Well, I'm sure that'll be enlightening, because I thought that was something to do with the Revolutionary War, about the stamps that they fought against, or something like that. But it's obviously not the case.
No,
so,
no. You must live in a state with income tax. Whenever anybody complains about the closing costs and the documentary stamp taxes on the closing statement, I'm like, you got to have roads somehow. And, you know, old people don't work, but they sure do buy and sell property. So they found a way. The state has found a way to make it work. So as always, we appreciate you joining us. If you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to John or to our team. If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to hear, we'd like to bring things that are relevant to you and your business. So just let us know what's on tap for you that you'd like to know more about. As always, our recordings are distributed on our YouTube channels, on our Facebook pages, and on our Koontz Associates and Koontz & Parkin websites. And if you want to join us next week for Doc Stamps, we'll see you on Tuesday at 10.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.